This week's edition of NJBIA's Minding Your Business is brought to you in part by AT&T, helping family, friends, and neighbors connect in meaningful ways every day. New Jersey's community colleges, aligning education to build an innovative workforce. Find out how your business can benefit at njpathways.org. And by New Jersey Business Magazine, providing critical information needs for New Jersey's business community for more than 66 years.
Welcome to NJBI's Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, CGI, one of the largest IT business consulting firms in the world, has made a huge commitment to innovation workforce development here in New Jersey. And here to tell us all about it is CGI New Jersey Director Sean Kennedy. Sean, thanks for being back on the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And you just came from, I guess it was a Senate chat, NJBI Senate chat with the candidates of Andy Kim and Curtis Bashaw. What'd you think of it?
I thought it was great. I appreciate starting with that. I literally just saw Michelle.
Yeah.
Told her I was coming here today. Told her I would talk about the event. I thought the event was great.
Yeah.
I applauded her, and I applaud BIA for getting the two Senate candidates that were 20 days away as we tape this. So pretty impressive to have them. It's always good for the business community, the political community. We're in Trenton, so you had a good mix of attendees getting to hear from both of the major party candidates.
Yeah, and what I like about both of these candidates, Sean, is they're both getting their message out there. It doesn't seem, politics can be a little lower rung, if you will, but these guys are on the issues, which I like.
Yeah, there's no question, and we are not seeing that in the national picture, but in New Jersey, I think you have to applaud both of them for the civility and kind of staying out of the fray. I think they're both making their case without taking the unnecessary shots that we see all the time now in politics.
Yeah, so thanks for being there. Before we get into the big announcement that CGI made, why don't you tell the folks, remind them what CGI is and does?
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about it. So CGI, we're a global business consulting and IT firm. We have over 400 offices in 40 countries. Here in New Jersey, our office is in New Brunswick, which it's great to be in Middlesex County, so we kind of feel like we're kind of in the middle of the state. It's easy to get everywhere. It's easy to service our clients.
Right.
It's easy to come down and talk to you. It's easy to meet with potential clients. It's a great place. And Mike Regan, who's our senior vice president, who I get to work with every day, he said it best. We get the benefit of having over 250 partners in the New Brunswick, New Jersey, central, New Jersey location.
Right.
But we also get the ability, when we service our clients, to have over 90,000 partners around the globe.
I saw that stat too,
so if there's something that we can't necessarily solve or fix out of the New Brunswick office, we get the ability to bring in literally 90,000 people from around the globe for literally a world-renowned global company.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of those 90,000 are coming to you for help too on some certain things. And by the way, the New Brunswick office, we had the opportunity to be there a couple weeks ago, actually. Beautiful office. But I wanted to ask the company's headquarters, CGI's headquarters in Montreal, where last month you joined Governor Murphy for his 4-day Choose New Jersey sponsored economic mission to Canada, and you hosted a big CGI announcement at your headquarters. So what was the big announcement?
So the specific announcement was, and I appreciate you giving an opportunity to talk about that, the specific announcement was that we signed an academic affiliation agreement with Rowan University. So that in particular was near and dear to my heart. I'm a Rowan alum, and I worked for 6 years with President Hushman, Provost Tony Lohman at Rowan, and had a little bit to do with some of the impetus behind that.
Sure.
But that in particular, Mike Regan and Bob Allard from Rowan signed the agreement, which is going to continue to help us work with a lot of the higher education institutions around the state to just build the pipeline. And we're seeing that there's a lot of students who are interested in IT, business consulting, and the more that we can help the university kind of make sure that they're getting the training they need then it helps everybody because they kind of hit the ground running as opposed to a long onboarding process. So the students that we hire, and we hire a lot of them from around the state. We're in the backyard of Rutgers, so a lot of Rutgers as well.
Very close.
And Tony Calcato was on that mission, the chief operating officer of Rutgers, who we have a great relationship with. But it gives us the opportunity to bring in and help sort of craft in some ways the academic side of it, so that when they do graduate, they're ready to go.
Right. And I'm sure Governor Murphy loved this too, because this is kind of right up his alley for what some of his missions.
Listen, and by the way, let me say this, and there is no, this is my third economic trade mission with the governor in choosing New Jersey. There is no better ambassador for the state than the governor. And I know, some people across the state can quibble with the politics, but in terms of what he does as an ambassador for the state, there's nobody better. And on these missions, you kind of get to see it, right? So not only the governor, but also the First Lady is always there, and she's prominently featured, and she's meeting with people on her own. But then he's, you get to kind of see his leadership team, right? So Eric Brophy, who's his vice deputy chief of staff, in charge of economic development. Tim Sullivan, who's the CEO of the EDA. Wes Matthews, the CEO of Choose New Jersey. So you kind of get to see how they all work and what they're doing, not only to sort of help attract businesses to the state, but just in general promoting New Jersey and promoting as best they can, the environment here.
There's no doubt they are definitely cheerleaders for the state, for sure. Let's get a focus a little about this program of what it could be. I don't know if you have a number for internships that would happen yet, or is it too soon to ask that?
So in terms of the internship program that we run one every summer, and we have generally between 10 and 25 depending on the year. So there are specific internships that we do that come from not only the universities, but also, and I think we talked about this last time, P-TECH, which is a program that the governor started. Mike Regan is on the board. Mike seems to be involved in everything.
Mike's on a lot of boards.
He's involved in everything.
He's a very busy guy.
He's great, and it helps CGI, and I think it helps. I think he brings a lot of value to the organizations he's a part of, NJBIA being another one. So we try to bring on as many of these students as possible, and then it turns out that most of the time they end up coming on board at CGI. So not only are we helping train them, but I think we're giving them a positive experience that they want to continue to be a part of it. As far as the Rowan situation is concerned, we have had talks with Rowan about being an anchor tenant in a hub that they're trying to build on the campus. So they have a lot of things going on the West Campus. In Spear Hospital, the first vet school in the state is going up, and they want to have sort of this economic hub, which if CGI can become an anchor tenant, I think that'll only increase the amount of internships that we give, and just continue to help drive that economic engine.
And at risk of sounding old-fashioned, these would be paid internships, I'm sure.
Yes, absolutely.
And let's talk about, you mentioned how these can turn into jobs. I wanted to read you some data, Sean, about value of internships, right? So LinkedIn interns, this was a stat from LinkedIn, are almost 25% more likely than non-interns to start a full-time position within 6 months of graduation. And the National Association of College and Employers says 8 out of 10 employers expect to maintain or increase the number of interns they were bringing in for this past 23-24 year than the year prior. So I bring this up to you, Sean, because can you kind of quantify the value of internships? I'm not sure if you were one yourself at any point while you were at Rowan, but how valuable are these things to students?
Extremely valuable, and not only for the experience that they gain, but also for, and let's face it, we're in a sector, right? Whether you call politics, government, business, what relationships matter. They just do.
Absolutely.
And so being able to build those relationships and being able to form them and get to know people goes a long way. And let me just say, in addition to Rowan, just to segue, because I think you gave me a perfect lift there. There are a bunch of other academic institutions on that Choose New Jersey delegation. So I got to spend time with President Repollet from Kane, who I think has an office
Yeah,
here in your building.
We just brought him milk. He was low.
President Lim from NJIT. I got to meet President Jeb at Ramapo, dynamic leader.
Right.
So I mentioned Tony Calcato at Rutgers. So there were representatives from Stevens, small little school around here called Princeton. Right. So there were a lot of what I think that delegation and led by the governor has done is it has really, to your point, helped to kind of forge those relationships between the higher education institutions in the state, which I think are second to none, and the business community. So you're literally spending, in this case, 4 days with all the same people. You're in the room. You can't help but have conversations. You can't help but build relationships. And all of that goes back to helping to foster ways where you're only increasing the opportunities for our students to we were just talking about our kids in college, and getting there. How are they going to get a job? Well, that's how you do it. You have the business community work with the government and the academic institutions to help build those relationships.
Right. Well, this affiliation agreement, are there? I was reading. I want to make sure I get it correctly. Research opportunities are going to be part of that?
Absolutely. So what we will do is we will work in conjunction, and we've had discussions with these types of affiliations with several of the other schools that I've met. But so we will help work with them and help craft their their academic programs so that they're getting the training that they need to get the job, not which I think historically has gone on at some of the colleges, where they kind of give you an academic program that they think the businesses now are becoming more involved. And again, I mentioned Dr. Hushman before, but I think one of the things that he has done so well at Rowan, and it's the third fastest growing public university in the country. One of the things he has done is he comes from a business background himself. He has realized that what we need to do is not teach them what we think is important. Let's talk to what the businesses in the state need, and let's help to do that. So this academic affiliation agreement will help do that, and it also will help give Rowan students a pipeline to work with CGI, so that whether they want to pursue that career or not, they're getting training from literally a global company.
Right. Rowan's got this big global reach. This is going to increase it. I'm wondering, as you were talking, excuse me, you were a student there, and I think you were VP of Government Affairs for 6 years.
Yes.
What does this mean for you, like, to see this partnership?
No, it's great, and that's one of the things that I mentioned. But it was really a proud moment for me because I had met Mike Regan on one of these previous trade missions and got to know him and got to really appreciate his values and what he was doing at CGI, and then being able to see Mike Regan and Bob Allard, who was a colleague at Rowan, sit with the governor and get this thing done. And all that's going to do is inspire more of those partnerships with other companies and other universities. And so like on this trip, you had Ralph LaRosa, right, who from PSE&G. You had Chris Guyton at Johnson & Johnson, an iconic institution in the state. So all you're doing is basically getting these leaders in business in the room with leaders in our higher education and figuring out ways to help create jobs. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what's most important.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about CGI's contribution to this. And, CGI has had a huge impact in a fairly short time in recent years here in New Jersey. And even with our Women's Business Leaders Forum, you guys started it, I think it was a women's, I'm not sure it was an empowerment or a mentorship.
Yep.
So talk about it. Why is CGI getting so involved in all this stuff?
I keep giving the same answer, but Mike Regan. I mean, he
where is Mike?
he sent me to talk, so I'll say a lot of good things about it. But that was his vision, and we were talking about this before, but when you're talking about technology and STEM, it's traditionally not been an area where a lot of women have been involved in and been successful, and so Mike wanted to help change that. And then going back to Michelle again, who I saw this morning, and who I said the same thing to her this morning. We had sent about 25 of our women employees to the women mentoring program that Michelle and NJBIA held. They hold yearly, but this year was in Atlantic City. And I was mentioning it before, but I literally, in the office yesterday, Jenna Dean, Maddie Colleen, Chavi Kapoor, they're still talking about it.
Right.
I mean, and this is our younger generation, and I will tell you, way smarter than I am.
Yeah.
They are superstars,
Yep.
and they're going to help transform the way that our state moves forward.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that we were talking about, which I think sort of ties in with this, is AI.
Yeah.
And so, the governor has made it a point to try to make New Jersey, a leader in AI. CGI obviously is heavily involved in that. Mike Regan again sits on the task force there.
Right.
So, in terms of that program, and just Jenna, Maddie, and Chavi, just three of many employees that attended from CGI, you're seeing firsthand the impact that type of program has on young women who are getting involved in this field and really are going to take New Jersey and the country to new heights.
It's awesome. I saw the post you're talking about just today, actually, and it was like, wow, that was weeks ago, and it's still having an impact.
Still talking about it, yeah.
All right. Well, Sean Kennedy, this is great. CGI, fostering innovation and developing a highly skilled workforce. Great job, Sean.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate
Got it. We'll be back right after these words.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly dreaming left its scenes while I was sleeping. And whispered in the sound of silence.
Welcome back to NJBI is Minding Your Business. I'm Bob Considine. Well, while the transportation sector is a major contributor to carbon emissions in New Jersey, many feel the policies being put in place to decarbonize the sector are either too costly, not feasible, or impractical. So how will New Jersey be able to effectively decarbonize the transportation industry? Well, that was a panel discussion at New Jersey's recently held 4th Annual Energy Conference before a packed crowd in Iselin. Let's see what the subject matter experts had to say.
I'm curious from a business perspective, how are you seeing customers responding to the EV transition?
So it really depends on the customer, right? So we have, when EVs really started rolling out, the viable EVs, you had the people who had to be first, the early adopters. And the early adopters, that wave has kind of crashed on the beach. The people that had to have them first, have been driving them. Incidentally, there are a lot of them when they come, they finish their lease, kind of look at it and say, all right, I did that and, it was okay, but I'm going to go back to either gas powered or hybrid. And a lot of them are opting to not continue along with battery electric because of some of the experiences that they've had. Notably, we had one customer, got their car home, spent all the money to put the charger in at home, plugged in their car and figured out that they can't run their air conditioner and their charger at the same time because there's not enough juice coming from the street to power both of them at the same time, which it makes it difficult. Now we're really to the mainstream customers, and the mainstream customers I think really want to do the right thing, right? They know that the electrification thing is coming, so they come in, they ask questions. When you get them behind the wheel of an EV, they really like it, and there's nothing not to like about these cars. The cars are fantastic, the technology is great, the driving experience is really cool. Where the friction comes in is when they follow the bouncing ball and kind of figure out, well, what does the ownership experience of going from 100%, from gas to 100% battery, what does that actually mean? And for a lot of people, on average, people drive 30, maybe 40 miles a day. So if you can come home at night, plug your car in, and wake up every morning with the equivalent of a full tank of gas, right? You might have 250, 300 miles of range, and you're only going to drive 30. It makes perfect sense. But in order to get there, most people have to spend several $1,000s in the infrastructure in their house to get to the point where they can install that charger. So do they take that and spend the money on their house to be able to use that, or do they take that money and put it down on a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid? So there's that commitment. If you're the type of person who lives in a condo or an apartment or somewhere where you aren't able to plug in every night, it's probably never really going to be a practical choice for you. We've got one of my finance managers at the Subaru store drives a Solterra, that's Subaru's EV, and he loves the car. It's a great car, but he doesn't have anywhere to plug it in. So God love him, every Sunday morning, he downloads a couple of movies to his iPad, and he goes to the mall, and he plugs in his car, and he sits there for a couple hours and watches movies while his car charges, so that he can drive for the next week. That's not practical for, to ask people to do. So when they kind of follow the bouncing ball, they typically pivot to plug-in hybrid or strong hybrid, where there's tremendous demand and tremendous sales.
But I should just say first and foremost that the truck dealers are very supportive of whatever the customers want to buy. They are making the investment to sell and service electric trucks, whether it's putting charging at their dealerships or training their team on how to service electric trucks and electric vehicles and do it safely. We have a shortage of diesel technicians, but now when you are servicing an electric truck, it takes 2 technicians to service that truck, not 1, because someone has to stand with a shepherd's hook to pull them off the truck if they get electrocuted. So there are some real safety concerns that our dealers need to invest in too, to make sure they're doing their business properly. But on the CARB front and what's coming to New Jersey, you have the Advanced Clean Trucks rule coming to effect in 2025. And these rules are really impacting the truck dealers in California right now as they've been adopted this year. The manufacturers are required to sell a certain amount of electric trucks by a certain dates. And this is resulting in using their credit buildup to figure out how many diesel trucks they can actually sell to their customers. And in some situations, they have to sell 1 battery electric truck before they can sell 1 diesel truck. So this is really having a big impact on their business model. And then some manufacturers who have more of a buildup, they can sell maybe 1 battery electric truck and get 7 diesel trucks. So it just depends on the manufacturer and how their credits have been built up. So these are some major changes, and I know the truck dealers in New Jersey are very nervous about how this is going to pan out in 2025, because New Jersey doesn't have the incentives that California has.
So on the manufacturer side, we are of course aware that the transportation sector, as Rebecca said, is a major contributor to carbon emissions, and that as such we have a major role to play in reducing that output. We are doing our part on the private investment side, looking into our electric vehicles, investing in them, making vehicles that are exciting and that have longer range, that are reliable, and that are more affordable, so consumers are really excited about them as well. Kind of looking at that policy side, from the manufacturer side, what we're looking at is policies that would support the ecosystem. Electrification is not just about changing a propulsion system. We can do that, yes, but the ecosystem needs to be in place to support that. So really looking at investment into infrastructure, getting the charging system set up so that it's easy to use and drive your electric vehicle seamlessly. And as we kind of talked about earlier, really investing into the electric grid and expanding the capacity and making it more dynamic so that it is possible to have this adoption.
No, thank you. And I mean, in terms of some of your comments today, Brendan, I know you've been talking a lot about refineries, and it really is more than just fuel. And you've talked about policymakers. So just really quickly, do you feel like the policymakers in setting decarbonization goals understand what refineries do and the role refineries play in the process?
What do you guys think? No, yeah. So as I mentioned before, right, so some of these minerals are a good example, right? Most of the graphite, it takes on average 10 to 13 years to permit a mine. So for graphite, synthetic graphite's been a much better option for that specific mineral. And right now, most of it that's used in any kind of battery, really, SUVs, is actually synthetic graphite that is made out of a type of petroleum coke, which is a byproduct, right? It comes out of a machine called a coker. I got one in Delaware City if anybody wants to see one. But so, again, you need manufactured petroleum products for a lot of these offshore wind, growing industry. As the turbines get better, more and more people are using carbon fiber. So 50% of that is manufactured petroleum product. All the materials in electric vehicles, so from the materials you use for the body, anything in the upholstery, really, over half of that is actually like a petrochemical derived product. And so we have carried that message to policymakers. To the extent you want to incentivize diversifying our energy mix, you have to recognize that we have a significant manufacturing assets in petroleum refineries here. And you're going to need their stuff for no matter what you want to do. So how can we make sure they're a part of the mix and that they stick around to be part of a diverse energy domestic supply chain, as opposed to throwing the baby out with the bathwater, for lack of a better analogy, and seeing premature refinery closures and just having these supply chains maintained concentrated overseas.
So Elizabeth, if you could just, talk to us a little bit about what steps are being taken to reduce carbon emissions in manufacturing and, what additional steps you think may help us get closer to some of these goals.
Of course, thanks, Rebecca. So we really focused for the decarbonization on this panel today on electrification, and that is a major part of decarbonizing the transportation sector. We really do need to achieve that to get there. But there are also steps we can take in the manufacturing process that will reduce the emissions throughout the process as well. At Volvo, we have a goal of being net zero emissions by 2040, so we've really taken this whole approach, and we've partnered with organizations to reduce our emissions in other aspects. So we're partnered with a steel company in Sweden right now, which is where our large headquarters is, and working out a near zero emission steel that we can use in the automotive industry in our vehicles moving forward. We're also really focused on our sustainability pillar of circular economy, so reusing some of our materials to the best of our abilities in our new cars and those components. In our EX90, which is our most recent vehicle that we just launched, about 15% of the steel and plastics is recycled, and about a quarter of the aluminum is recycled. So we're making really exciting steps forward in the component aspect of it. Along the manufacturing line itself, we can also look at our manufacturing facilities. We're working to use renewable fuels in our facilities to reduce the actual emissions outputs of the facilities themselves, and also the emissions in the actual transportation process of the transportation sector. So reducing our use of air freight in our manufacturing line, and also using renewable biofuels in our container transport that's intercontinental. So there are some exciting steps forward that we are taking and that we can take as an industry that's a little bit further than electrification of the cars as well.
What steps are dealerships taking as you're responding to the increasing demand for vehicles, electric vehicles, I should say? And how do you think normally we policy sometimes it feels like, is kind of drafted in a vacuum, where there are good ideas, you draft policy, but then how does it play out? So kind of flipping that, how do you think policy should be responding to what you're actually seeing on the ground?
Sure. So as far as steps that dealers are taking to be ready for the future demand that we expect. Dealers we're excited about the transition. It's always a different challenge for us. Like I said before, we want to be able to sell people what they want to buy. Dealers have already invested hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of infrastructure for charging, for special tools. Like Laura said, there are a lot of particular safety tools and safety training that goes into selling and working on these cars. Inventory, again, training. At our Hyundai store, we've spent on two high-speed chargers, with a little over $200,000 that it took for that. We're in the middle of getting ready to embark on a project at the Subaru store that's going to cost over $500,000 so that we can put 4 chargers in. So when you look at the cost versus what actually comes out of it, it's a big commitment, but dealers are all in on the EV transition. As far as where are we going from here and how should policy respond, one of the things that Brandon was just talking about was the materials that go into batteries. Toyota did a study not too long ago where they they figured out how much of the materials are required to build one BEV battery, and if they took that amount of materials, they could build 12 plug-in hybrids or something like 40 regular hybrid cars. And then they looked at the environmental impact of taking one BEV off the road, or one gas car off the road in exchange for one BEV. The environmental impact of taking 12 gas-powered cars off for 12 plug-ins, or 40 gas cars off for 40 hybrids. And for the same amount of material, the much greater environmental impact was for the 40 cars. I'm hopeful that New Jersey, once Governor Murphy his term expires next year, going into the future, that New Jersey recognizes that the BEV or nothing approach of California Air Resources Board is not going to be successful in meeting our goals. I'm really hoping that going forward, I'd really love to see New Jersey adopt the EPA regulations in favor of the CARB regulations.
All right, thanks to those panelists and the hundreds who attended NJBIA's 4th Annual Energy Conference. And thank you for joining us on NJBIA's Minding Your Business. We'll see you next time.